Hey guys, so our next lesson today is going to be on real life example of reaction types. So we kind of went through yesterday, or I guess not yesterday, but the previous lesson was on predicting if something's going to happen or not. So this is just kind of some examples of real life examples of the reactions that we've gone through. So the first one, combustion. Combustion reactions are something that are a little bit easier to understand. They're reactions that are primarily used to create energy. It's normally in the form of heat. Like we cook our food, we heat our homes. It's also used to create other forms of energy. An example of that is like an engine. Okay, where it converts one form of energy to another. It's used in electricity generation. I mean, we use combustion quite a bit. It's one of the reactions that's definitely changed human society. Some of the common fuels that we burn are all carbon and hydrogen based, like methane, which is natural gas or CH4, ethane, propane. Propane is often used in barbecues, as well as people who live in country homes who don't have natural gas will use propane to heat their house. Butane is in lighters, and octane, and you can see they're all really just carbon and hydrogen. And because they're just pure carbon and hydrogen, we call them hydrocarbons. Okay, they're also known as fossil fuels. And the reason why they're called fossil fuels is because they're from the dead remains of prehistoric plants and animals that have come from the ground in the form of crude oil or petroleum. So at some point, in millions of years, you're going to turn into crude oil or turn into methane gas. That's what happens to dead organic matter, as it eventually turns into petroleum. Now, combustion reactions do occur naturally. So even if humans weren't on Earth, we'd still have lightning from things like, we still have fires from things like lightning, auto ignitions, where it just gets, an area gets too warm and then will just burst into flames. You'll see that sometimes if at home you've ever had a big pile of, say, mulch. Mulch can get really, really warm and actually start combusting in the middle, and you can see it sometimes smoking. Also the refraction of light. So, if there's some kind of refraction of light either from water or from a piece of ice, it can cause a fire as well. Okay. But humans create most forms of combustion. Most of it's unnatural in terms of we are purposely starting a fire. Here's just some common examples. I have candles. So candles give us heat as well as light. This picture up here at the top with all the blue flames, that's an example of a furnace. So that's what your furnace would look like inside, and a nice blue flame, so it's pretty clean. We have bonfires just for recreational. Fires also allowed us to propel, to move at a rapid speed. So the space shuttle uses combustion. Our car engines use combustion. The combustion engine is a very popular thing. This is a steam engine, but it also uses combustion. So I'm not going to ask you how this has really worked, but just for interest's sake, how a steam engine worked was basically you started a fire here where you would burn coal, and coal burns really, really hot. You would heat up a whole bunch of water. Let me get a better color here. You heat up a whole bunch of water. That water or steam turns into steam because the heat comes down and that steam pushes the piston. Okay, and it's the same thing as a combustion engine, except we use gasoline to push the piston. A steam engine uses steam to push the piston. So combustion was a very, very important reaction. The next type is synthesis. So synthesis reactions all require a steady stream of energy and input, and therefore can take a long time to occur. Usually a lot of synthesis reactions are not rapid, but rather a gradual reaction. The one that we're going to specifically talk about is corrosion. Okay, so the idea of iron reacting with oxygen with a little bit of energy to form iron oxide. So if you look over here in my picture to the right, I have a nice clean piece of iron. Right? Well, we've isolated this metal. And when we isolate metal from an element, or we isolate a metal element from a compound and create something like an iron nail, like we have up here, instantly the iron will start reacting with the air. So immediately when you start making that iron, it's now going to start reacting with air. And inside air we have oxygen, and oxygen is extremely reactive. And those two things are going to start to combine, and what you're going to see over time with the input of energy is you're going to see it start to rust. Okay, now you may think, well, where is this energy coming from? Well, it's the form of heat. It's sunlight. And that's why things that are in sunlight, assuming some other factors like water, corrosion happens a lot faster in warm temperatures than it does in cooler temperatures. Okay. So to prevent corrosion, if you want to prevent this, you do things like if you take iron and you want to prevent it from reacting with air, you can coat it with paint. So if you kind of take a look at how I've highlighted it here, if I put a coat of paint over top of this nail, then it won't corrode. because the air is not able to reach the metal. It just reaches the paint. However, if the paint chips off or if I have a scratch in the paint, then wherever that scratch is, it will corrode. So corrosion also happens a lot on the scratches of your car. If you get a scratch on your car, it can start to corrode. Okay, so that's our telltale example of a synthesis reaction. So what will happen is you have our iron nail reacting with oxygen with a little bit of energy, and then it's going to turn into iron oxide, and then eventually that rusted nail is going to turn right back into a rock at the very end, because iron oxide is an ionic compound. So eventually those nails will start pushing together and will form this kind of red rock like we have here, or iron oxide ore. Okay. Now, decomposition, like we've talked about before, is the exact opposite. So keeping with opposites, we're going to use mining example. The other one was corrosion of metals. For synthesis, we're going to do the breakdown or the isolation of metals for this one. So decomposition reactions are the opposite of synthesis reactions. So to follow our first example of corrosion being an example of a synthesis reaction, mining is an example of, a decomposition reaction. So in mining, we're going to do the exact opposite. We're taking a compound like FeO, so like something like this, we go to the ground and we find this rock, FeO, and we are attempting to isolate the metal. So we want FeO with some energy, okay? We're going to put a little bit of energy in originally, and what's going to happen is we're going to get pure iron and then oxygen gas to come out, and this is what we're after, is just the pure iron. So what we do is we take this rock, we heat it all up, it's called a process called smelting, and then what's going to happen is through that smelting process, we're going to end up with two things. We're going to end up with pure iron, which we can use then to make that nail, and then we'll have oxygen gas that gets released during the process. Okay, so this is a classic decomposition reaction where we're taking a rock, which is a compound, and then breaking it down into the elements of iron and oxygen. All right, what I want to go over is a single displacement reaction. We're not going to go over a double displacement because, again, we're going to cover that in solutions. So an example of when a single displacement reaction happens is in water testing. So say if I suspected that a metal is in the drinking water. So say I think that something like lead is in my drinking water. So I'm just going to get drinking water, and I think that lead is in there. Okay, I don't know because it's clear. You wouldn't be able to see it, but I think that, say, lead is in there. Okay. Well, one way I could test for it is if I suspected lead was in there, what I could do is I could use my reactivity series and say, okay, well, where is lead on here? Lead is right there. Okay. So if lead is in this thing, and I put a more reactive metal inside, then I'll see a reaction. Okay? If there's no metals at all inside there, and if I put, say, a piece of calcium, so let's try and find a more reactive metal we're going to use. We're going to use, actually, we'll use magnesium ribbon. Okay? So if there is lead in there, let's just say there is lead in there, and I decide, okay, I'm going to test to see if there's lead in there, and I'm going to put a piece of magnesium ribbon in there. Then what's going to happen is we're going to have a single displacement reaction. Now what we have is we've just done this. Let me just write this out with a little bit smaller piece. What we just did was we now have magnesium plus PbOH. Okay. And since we know that magnesium is more reactive, we know that if there is lead in here, we're going to see a reaction. And what's going to happen is this magnesium is going to start going into the compound, and it's going to start to disappear. Okay? And why it's going to disappear is because it's replacing lead in the hydroxide. And it's going to disappear, and then what we're going to have is we're going to have a piece of lead that just starts to form. Okay? And that would tell me that there was lead originally in this solution, because what I did was I placed a piece of magnesium in there, magnesium went in, they swapped places, the magnesium swapped places, then I got a pure piece of lead here, and now I have my magnesium dissolved in the water. So it's a way that you could test to decide whether or not a metal was dissolved in the water. Okay? So if there's a reaction, it means there must have been lead. If I did the exact same thing, let me go back here. And if I did the same experiment, but there was no lead in there, and I just took a piece of magnesium and put it in there, and nothing happened, well, it could indicate two things, okay? It could indicate that there is nothing below this, so none of these metals are inside there. But it doesn't eliminate the fact that sodium, calcium, potassium, and lithium might be in there. Okay, those ones still would be in there because they're not going to show a reaction because they're more reactive and they're already in a compound mode. But putting in something like magnesium would eliminate anything below this, would say none of these things are possibly inside there because I didn't see a reaction. The safest thing to do would really to put some lithium in there. If you put some lithium in there, okay, unfortunately this lithium reacts with water. So maybe calcium, I guess, would be the best. Take a look at calcium. If you put that in there, then you can prove that nothing below that is in the water dissolved if there was no reaction. So that's it for single displacement reactions and the different examples of the three types.